this session is about the sports awards, and Ekamra takes a lot of pride in sports awards. And for this, I would want to, the jury here will come and will tell you that how actually we decide the awards. The Ekamra jury is known for diligence and careful reading, and this year's panel brought that same rigor to every submission. B.V. Rao couldn't join us today, but co-founder Shireen Sethi speaks with the rest of the jury about how the selections were made. Amrita Tripathi, author of 5 books, brings insight into both the writing and editorial sides of publishing. Neel Shah, who has written a book on football, combines academic grounding with his role leading the DreamSports Foundation. And Dr. Ajit Kanitkar adds policy understanding and the perspective of a lifelong sportsman.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience, for going through all these sessions. And thank you very much to our guests who've come from various countries, from Palestine, from Italy, from Havana. Thank you so much for being here. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is the Sports Book Awards, because we believe that Ekamra and this festival is about authors. It's not about anybody else or anything else. It's about writing. And so ever since these awards came, we've had a jury which goes through the books. One of the things I just want to make clear is that the nominations are always from the publishers. They are the ones who send in the books, and then it is a jury that decides. And this year's jury was making Excel files of what book they liked and they didn't. So first and foremost, thank you all very, very much for making the effort. I'm going to start with you, Amrita. In the entire process of going through these books in these 6 categories, what was it that stood out for you?
I think one is, how the writers themselves have found the subject matter that really speaks to them. So that passion really comes through in most of the books. I also think, I'm the only person who's actually not from the sports fraternity here. So as someone who's, worked on as a writer, who's a very avid reader, for me it was really fascinating to see how much sports writing has changed over the years, because we were looking at books on badminton, we're looking at books on sports psychology, we're looking at children's books. It was quite a fascinating read, and really what does speak is the author's passion, and also the importance, as we've spoken about, the whole process, right? Whether it's the editing, whether it's the curation of the material, and at the end of the day, it has to be a story that's well told, I think.
Neel, you yourself are an author, having written a book on football, which we featured a couple of years ago at Ekamra. And you're an academic, you also understand both sides. When you are going through these submissions, and of course you've been given that there are these 6 categories, does it make a difference that you're a writer? Do you look at it differently?
I mean, I think I have a lot of sympathy right off the bat, because it's not just the writing process. I think the writing process is part of the easy part. It's just getting it published, the editing, the whole journey, kind of getting it marketed and promoted. So I really have a lot of compassion right off the bat for anybody who chooses to go down the journey of getting a book published. Second part of it, though, is I know when I wrote, I've written 2 books. In both books, I always thought about the reader. So I'm always thinking, if somebody picked this book up, even if they're not fully interested in this topic, would they still find it engaging? Right. So there was a lot of books that were in the bundle of books that you sent us to read that I felt like had a lot of good subject matter, but sometimes, at times I was always looking at it from the lens of, if I was a reader, just a general reader who's picking this up, would it keep my interest? Would I want to keep turning the page? Right. And I think a lot of the choices I was making around, the award categories that you guys provided was from the lens of a general reader who's looking at this from the face of that, because I know as a writer, I'm always thinking about the masses rather than just those handful of people who might pick up the book. Right. Yeah.
Dr. Kanitkar, you've been on our jury for 3 years now, and you've seen 40, 50 books. It was a smaller load this year. What, according to you, has changed in the books that you've been seeing?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. 2 things have not changed. Sandeep calling me somewhere from Tokyo early in the morning or late midnight saying that, Ajit, are you on board this year? I said, of course I am on board. Second thing, I cheat continuously for the 3rd year. I said, I am computer illiterate, so please request the publishers to send a hard copy and not the PDF version. Though I can read PDF, but I find it easy because I can smell the book when it comes to the courier or the post. I think this year has been fantastic because one has seen a range of topics being covered. So we have books on psychology, psychology training. In the morning session, we have a lot of discussion on mental health. So sports is not just fitness. It's all here. and I think that's getting reflected. It's getting diverse. It's just not cricket. Excuse me, the panel members in the earlier session. India is more than cricket, and I think that's also getting reflected. So we have chess, a book on chess, a book on other sports, a book on kushti in the Haryana context. So there's a huge diversity, and I enjoy that diversity. And of course, cricket, I'm a big fan.
Neel, one of the things that was very interesting this time was the children's books that came in. And I know the jury loved it. We couldn't particularly find a category for it. What did you like so much about it?
Yeah, there was 2 children's books, and given that I've learned a lot about life skills through sports, and I think a lot of us could say the same, I imagine, who are here right now. And there was one of the books, Kushti Kid, was really interesting because it's kind of like the story of Dangal, the wrestling story, but it was done in such a engaging way that you learn a lot about the struggles of an individual, the struggles of a family, of a female child, of a youth that is trying to become a professional athlete. You understand a lot about some of the district issues and others. So I remember putting that book down, having not only enjoyed it as a reader, but also somebody who works in the sports industry. I actually learned a lot. So for a youth who dreams of being, like one of our medalists, it's good for them to understand that it's not just like a fun ride, like you one day wake up and you're Cristiano Ronaldo or Sunil Chetri, but there's a lot of challenges along the way. So I felt like I wish there was more children's books that aren't just easy and soft, but also giving a little bit of introduction to some of the challenges that exist within the ecosystem without turning somebody off from the journey as well.
Amrita, you're 5 books down, and that's huge by any level. 7 books? Sorry, I got that wrong. Okay, 7 books down. One of the things that Neel mentioned was that he looks at books from the perspective of anybody being able to read, so the readability factor. What we've discussed often, do you feel that, that publishing needs to have better editors, perhaps, to make it more readable? And did you find that in this year's books?
So I just have to give you the caveat that Shireen said she is going to put me on the spot, and we'll get some controversy out of this panel. Otherwise, we're being very polite. No, I think readability is the first thing. I think Neel's absolutely right. And again, as a writer, I feel the pain of every author who's trying to tell a story the best way they can. And sometimes you do need, and I think every one of us who's also worked in journalism knows, you do need a good editor if you're a reporter. If you're an editor, you do understand that that storytelling process requires multiple stakeholders, as it were. I do think a few of the titles could have maybe, you had more guidance editorially, perhaps a little bit more time, because it seems that there's a lot of pressure nowadays. Everybody wants the story like yesterday, right? So I do think there's a ways to go, but again, largely optimistic that we're seeing these stories even be published, and actually even very thankful to Ekamra. Like, I think the young athletes this morning really stood out to me to hear the girls talking about how far they've come, but also acknowledging the challenges they've had. I think we need more such stories and more such platforms.
Sure. Dr. Kanitkar, you're a man of statistics. So one of the things is there were 4 jury members, and there were certain categories which we are not going to talk about where there was a difference of opinion. So can you explain that issue that you were talking about reliability?
Yeah. A person of statistics is a little bit exaggerated statement, but we sit on various panels where different panel members bring different perspectives when we are interviewing candidates, when we are referring, or when we are reading a journal article or something which is sent for publication, and there is something called inter-jury reliability or inter-trainer reliability. So if I give a particular candidate A, then it's possible, or it has to be like that my colleague members also give A, if not A minus, or B plus, or B. But there is a big problem if I give some candidate A and my friend gives C and the other friend gives D, then at least there is some error of judgment in the way 3 of us judge or view a particular nomination or a book or a journal article, or for that matter any statistical number that we are looking at. And that's what we are broadly calling as inter-trainer reliability. I'm very happy to say that in the last 2 rounds, the one that was in Bhubaneswar and the first one in Delhi, and this time we are almost unanimous in our it's a blind review process. Sandeep doesn't share what the other panel members have said. It's a private call, and I give my nominations, and so also Neel, and so also Amrita, and then he does a little bit of a collaboration, whatever you call it. And I'm quite glad that in the morning I asked him as to how has been 3 of us gelling together, and Mr. Rao And he said, you are almost on dot. So I'm very happy about that.
What I liked very much is Amrita is asking me, oh, so who are the final winners?
Yes, who are the final winners? Almost. I think as an outlier, even as a jury member, in a couple of categories. But by and large, I think you're right, because you're looking at the similar parameters, right? Like you said, readability, the story, the research. I think we don't talk enough about the amount of research that's required for some of these books.
In fact, that's what we found in the football books, the amount of research. I think that was one thing that impressed you a lot, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of the books that I felt like, having written books and realizing, a lot of us have full-time jobs and something else, and then we're doing this on the side. It's very difficult to go out to do all that primary research. And there are a few of the books I was so impressed with how much time and energy was spent traveling around the country, meeting people, really understanding the essence of the story, and then talking about it from a way that hopefully the reader gets excited about. So yeah, I was really impressed with a couple of the books from that perspective.
Last question for you, Amrita, since you have a health collective yourself. Two of the books which were first-time entries this time were on sports psychology and sports science. Do you think this is a good trend and that we need to? So one of the authors said to me that through the panel discussions, one of the things was that everybody spoke about mental conditioning, about the need for strength, etc. So do you feel we should be seeing more books there?
Yes, and maybe even a new category, along with children's sports writing. I think it's a trend that we're seeing broadly since the pandemic in the mainstream, like sort of mainstream society as well, more conversations around it. But specifically around sports, the fact that you have so many sports people and athletes, including a Virat Kohli, including, like you said, every panel here, everyone willing to talk about this being one of the key things. Like you said, so much of sports is actually a mental game. I think it comes down to each of us and platforms like this, though, to remove that stigma and make it easier for people to have these conversations. And again, with books like this in the mental health space, you don't really want someone sitting and giving you a huge lecture on the you should. What you want are stories that will connect with you. And I think what happens when celebrities talk about mental health is it resonates with a lot more, right? They have the potential to have a lot more impact for the good.
Yes, please. No, that's okay. You carry on.
I think things are changing rapidly in our country. We are gunning for 2036 Olympics. I am associated with an interesting project called Grassroot Kridakul. So I think sports at the bottom, and we have heard stories of Australia and European countries where 10,000 people play a particular sport, and there are 5,000, there are 2,000, there are 1,000, there are 50, and there are 20 gunning for the final medalists. I think that kind of thing is happening in our country, and I hope that with this kind of festival, it also happens in Tier 2, Tier 3, small cities, small towns, vernacular places, and then the whole spirit of sportsmanship catches on. Last year, we did a small study on Olympic values among students, among youth, among parents, and we saw some fabulous results. So I think I am thankful to the organizer that this is in 7th year in consecutive years, and I hope this particular festival goes wide.
So you don't mind more homework next year, do you?
I don't mind that till we get a published print copy.
And I'll just to add to that, I know time's up. I do feel like a lot of the next stories will come out of conversations here. I was just sitting with a gentleman earlier, and he was sharing me his story of how he got into Indian football, and I was thinking this could be a book itself. So what's special about this place, and I've been at a lot of more formal, stuffy sports conferences recently, as of yesterday even, and this has a different vibe to it. So I think every single person has a story here to tell, and somebody has a story to write, or can write that story. So I take advantage of these platforms, because I think the next books can come right from tonight conversations.
Thank you very much. And B.V. Rao, who couldn't be here, thanks to him also. And now for the Sports Book Awards. Thank you.
Thank you to the organizers.